everyone. I'm Katie Darrell, and today we are at home and social with Pat Monahan of Train. And it's like 5 golden rings. It's been 5 years since you gave us music. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a weird couple of years. So we were planning on putting a new record out earlier, but we couldn't tour it. So we figured that we'd wait a little bit, and that gave me more time to make a better album for people.
So when you're sitting on music, do you go back and fiddle with the music, or do you step away?
Well, I do both. Mostly I step away and then I revisit it and then throw it in the garbage. That's the process for the most part.
It is the process. There's so much I've learned about musicians is that it's like you have 25 songs and maybe 8, 9, 11 make the album, and these other ones just sit on the shelf and get buried.
Yeah, I wrote way more than 25 songs. I started writing songs that actually were good, but they were much different than this album. They were more poppy and but in a different way. And this is more of a throwback album that I wrote with my bandmates. That it took me a while. It was a big learning curve to go from like visiting people in LA and writing with writers to being on Zoom in my own little house, writing songs with bandmates. But after like 4 to 6 months, we started to really get somewhere in a much better place than we would have.
Now, with songs, I know typically people do the pre-writing and start out the song acoustically. Is that kind of your MO, or how does Train go about?
There's a lot of different ways on this record. There's a lot of that. There were times where I would like disappear for a week and go somewhere with my family and then send my guys voice notes. There's other times where there'd be young guys who make tracks who would send them to my manager, and he would be like, this sounds like maybe you'd like it. So there's like 1 or 2 of those on there. It's a different process these days than it used to be.
Well, the album is called AM Gold, and the title track is AM Gold, and it has a very disco vibe. Is that okay for me to say?
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly right.
I heard it and it was stuck in my head. And then all of a sudden, Donna Summer on the radio was stuck in my head because I felt that they had both a very similar danceable, upbeat vibe. Did the song start out that way? Or is this one of those songs that you did start out, it's acoustic or, on the piano, and then in the production of the song, it got real dancey?
Well, this was one of the final songs. So when I was writing this whole album, my manager was like, you're kind of making a throwback AM Gold compilation record. And, before most people who are going to watch this would even know what that is, it's like old school 80s, all the hits on the radio compiled onto a vinyl album. And those were what people would purchase. And that was filled with every kind of music you could think of, including the Bee Gees and Donna Summer, to singer-songwriters and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and all of the R&B acts at the time. And so that's the kind of album this is. And AM Gold came later because I didn't have that disco in there yet. I didn't have that Bee Gees thing. And so AM Gold was written to fill that place. And also, it's a self-love song. We all need that.
For those of you just tuning in, I'm Katie Darrell, and he is Pat Monahan of Train. The band has a new studio album out, their 11th studio album. The song we're talking about right now is AM Gold, and how it has a bit of a disco dance vibe. I want to go back to your childhood, if you don't mind. You are the youngest of 7 kids. Congratulations on surviving.
Yeah, that's all my parents ever asked me to do is just survive.
Exactly. Do we have the last one? Did you ever get control of the radio dial growing up with that many kids dominating in the car, or did you have to listen to what the other siblings wanted?
Only at the end did I have control because my siblings were so much older than me. Like my last sister is 6 years older. Okay. My oldest brother was 15 years older. So they were so done with being in the house that finally I got to be in the car by myself with my parents and got control over it. And that's when I found like Michael Jackson. And so he was my kind of thrill. I loved Michael, but I was turned on to all the classic music, all the Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and, Dylan and everyone through my siblings. But then like that whole era was my own. And I loved hair metal. because who doesn't love hair metal when you're allowed to?
I mean, come on. This
Yeah,
girl loves hair metal.
that's right.
You mentioned Led Zeppelin, and it's no secret that you had a Led Zeppelin cover band in the past, and even Train did an album of Led Zeppelin too. Why Led Zeppelin? Why were you pulled and gravitated to their music?
At the time that we made that album, it was because I wanted everyone to see how tremendous my band is as musicians, and so that was the purpose for that. Plus, we all love that band equally. Each part of the band inspired all of us, whether it was the singer in Robert Plant or the guitar player, whatever you were inspired by, they all made a difference in our lives. And so before we put that record out, we had to get approval from them, and they gave us their blessing. And then because we wanted to just provide funds for our charity in San Francisco by selling that album, and they were cool with that too, that it went to Family House in San Francisco.
For those of you just joining us, we are at home in social with Pat Monahan of Train. The new album is called AM Gold. The tour, you have a North American tour that you just announced. You didn't quite announce it. You had comedian Ken Jeong do a great video.
And that was AM Gold by Train. Catch them on the AM Gold tour all
Train?
summer long.
AM Gold Tour?
With special guest Jewel.
With Jewel?
Blues Traveler and more.
Blues Traveler?
What's your relationship with Ken? How did you get him tied into this?
I've known Ken now for a long time. He was on my podcast early days before I stopped doing it. And I was on Dr. Ken, which he had a show on ABC. Yeah. I think it was ABC. And since then he's become Ken Jeong, the huge celebrity actor, but he's never going to be different in his heart. He's the most wonderful, caring, funny, just relatable guy you'd ever want to meet. And he's smarter than everybody I've ever met. So we asked Ken, because of how awesome he is, if he would mind announcing, and he just did such a better job than we ever could have asked.
So Ken's comfortable with his stardom. Are you comfortable with your stardom?
Mine's quite different. Like Ken's a pretty famous guy now. My music is famous. I wouldn't say I'm famous. So I'm very happy.
I'm sure there are some ladies out there that beg to differ.
Well, when I'm in your town, maybe you would recognize me, but if I'm on vacation, nobody cares. And so it provides me with a really great life, because I can take my kids places and nobody cares, and I can go places and nobody cares. It's a great balance, because having famous songs is pretty fun too.
You have a lot of famous songs. Right now we're obviously talking about the new studio album from Train. It is called AM Gold, but let's walk memory lane a little bit, shall we? Most of the world got Train shoved in their face with your hit song Meet Virginia in 1998. This was your first radio hit. What was it like hearing your music on repeat? Pretty much every 13th song it got played again and again. What was that like for you?
Well, it was at a time when we banked everything into, we made the record by borrowing money from friends and family. And I was a house painter in the Bay Area. And I just remember the first time hearing it on Alice in San Francisco. I was driving to go paint a woman's house, and the song came on, and I just turned around. I just went home. I was like, I'm on the radio, man. I can't be painting a house. And then I went and painted the house the next day, because I didn't realize that the check wasn't in the mail that day. I had to wait about a year and a half. But that was a thrill. And then when Drops of Jupiter came out on the next album, we finally got a chance to travel the world. That took us all over the world.
It got you some Grammys as well, too. What was it like finally getting that type of acknowledgement from your peers in the industry?
Well, I think the thrill for me was performing on the Grammys. And we do kid around that we were up for, I think, 6 or something that year, but or there were 5. And then U2 was also up for the same 5 categories. They won 4 of them and we won 1. And I remember looking down after we performed Drops of Jupiter, and Bono gave the thumbs up, but I thought that was his way of saying, you can have that one. I'm taking these. I'm taking those 4.
At least it was that finger and not another one. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Could have been another one.
And then Hey Soul Sister. I mean, this is a song that is, carved into everyone's ear holes. It reached diamond status.
Mm.
That's insanity. There are so many bands that, I mean, you mentioned growing up, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I'm not even sure they've reached diamond status. So what does it mean to you to have that accolade?
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's such a different world than what I started in. We used to compete for like shelf space for CDs, and
Mhm.
we're out with Jewel and Blues Traveler this summer. So they know they came up in the same era. It was like there's only enough room for one of us. And so now we don't have that competitiveness. We all want to share in the great stuff. And I think we learned a lot from like the world of hip hop. They've been doing that for 25 years, which I think we could have learned from earlier. But that being said, this is different now. So you get streaming, and we just hit 1 billion streams of Hey Soul Sister the last weekend. And when you think about that song being played that many times, it's pretty fun. But it's also like, what's next? What's the next thing that can be something to motivate someone to want to hear it that often? So that's the challenge.
I think it was in one of your press releases, there was a quote or a description that, your goal with writing the music for AM Gold, the new album from Train, is, writing a song you love, but then also having a song that people love too. I mean, that's the goal, because obviously you can have something that you cherish, but will
Yeah.
the rest of us cherish it the same way? How critical are you in the writing process and, sorting through what gets released and what doesn't?
Well, it's very challenging because sometimes I can fall in love with things that I shouldn't.
Mhm.
So I have to sit on them, which is also hard for me because I'm very I want to react right away, and I want to send it to everybody and have everybody think the same thing. And when that doesn't happen, it's disappointing. So I have to learn how to wait. And then when I finally do feel strongly enough about it that I wasn't wrong, and then I get a positive reaction, I know we're on the right track to something. That process is really not easy for me because when it's dear to you, it's I wouldn't say it's like a child, but it's like something you care about, and you don't want someone to not care as much as you. So writing an album that you care about is already hard. And then having other people say, yeah, I care about it too. And then say, okay, now let's see if the world cares about it. Then you're really challenging yourself.
Who are your trusted confidants? Who are the people that you send the music to first, and that they're not just going to BS you?
My manager Jonathan and my wife Amber is they're on two different sides of the spectrum of what they want, or what they want from music, not just my music but any music. But those two sides are really important. I think my wife represents what Train fans in general would want, and my manager is always looking for, like, I want my songs to be relevant. I don't want to just make a record that I care about and just goes away and we tour the same songs we've been touring for 10 years. And so if he says, if you want to be relevant, you have to be competitive. So I have to make sure that these songs are competitive. And those are the different parts of where they come from. And it's very helpful.
Do you ever argue them and find yourself like it's a losing battle? If they say it's not that great, but you're like, no, but it is. And you're like, why am I trying to convince someone that this is the song when I
Yeah, it's hard not to. I learned not to, but there was one song I wrote maybe 8 years ago that I still am like, why is this not? And it's called Party Hat. And my wife was like, yeah, I'm into it. And my manager was like, no, dude, this is not where you want to be. And that's hard because I want to fight against him and say, well, let's put it out and prove me right. And he's like, that's a bad idea. So
we
I
want
have to,
party hat, man. Hashtag
Yeah.
we want party hat.
We want
Trending
party hat.
now.
Anyway, maybe one day I'll be able to rewrite it in a way that'll make sense for me. But right now, no Party Hat.
No party hat, sad face. The new studio album from Train is called AM Gold. The tour in North America is kicking off soon. Lots of cities, but most importantly or significantly to me is that you are ending at Red Rocks, which is such a, people call it church, right? It's performing in church. How does your vibe or performance differ venue from venue? I mean, you've gone everywhere from starting in coffee houses in San Francisco to ending, another great tour at the Red Rocks. How does that affect your performance, the venue?
Well, Red Rocks is a whole other ball game because it's so special, but it's such a natural setting. So you feel like you're kind of out at a festival, and people are seated in these benches that are built into this beautiful rock. But performing in front of 15 people in a coffee house is almost more nerve-wracking because you can see every individual's expression, where at the Red Rocks, it's kind of one, you get to see the first 3 rows. Yeah, everybody's, either texting or videoing. But it's all a thrill. I mean, as long as it's music that is moving people, then it doesn't really matter where you are. But what a great privilege to be able to go to Red Rocks and some of the other places that we'll be visiting this summer with Jewel and Blues Traveler. It'd be really fun. We'll join each other on stage. It'll be like an old reunion because I've known them for a long, long time.
How important are those rock and roll friendships, and are they hard to maintain because everyone is on different schedules?
Rock and roll or music friendships, I think, are hard not just maintain, but hard to start. I think that was originally why I started a podcast years ago, because we would be at festivals, be on tours, and no one would talk to each other. And I just really never understood that. So as the the headliner of a show or of a tour, it's my job to create camaraderie, and I tried to do that through a podcast, and it just became so much work. Like what you're doing right now was really hard work for me while I was trying to write songs and tour and everything. But it was why I did it, because I wanted to make these friendships. And so it's really fun to know Jewel and John Popper and those guys, and have that relationship last a long time, because it doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. And you are in a risky business because we lose so many of the greats. I mean, even just most recently, Taylor Hawkins. And it's hard because people are trying to maintain these relationships, and then life gets in the way and stuff happens. And it's tricky.
And I try to tell people now, and not to worry about me, but I try to tell people, if you're not going to go see Train and Jewel and Blues Traveler, go see somebody. Go see something that you need it as a human. Like, live music experiences are so moving, and plus you never know when it's the last time you'll be able to see that artist. And I think Tom Petty and Prince and Taylor have proven that to be true.
Well, the new album is AM Gold from Train. It is their 11th studio album, the first time in 5 years that we're getting new music from the band. If someone right now was living in a hole and said, Train, what's Train all about? What would you tell them? What's the vibe of the band?
I think the vibe of the band shifted about 10 years ago, where I really wanted it to be for families. I want grandkids and grandparents and everything in between to share the experience together and enjoy it in different ways, but as much as one another. So it's all about coming together, being together, singing songs that are emotional, that might make you cry, and songs that'll make you dance. And also, my interest is not in using the F-bomb as often as possible, because I use it enough in my regular life that I don't need to share it with families on stage. So I think that is the way I would like to continue to be Train. Is it's for everybody. I mean, I know I can't please everybody, but it's for everybody.
Keeping it clean. I like it. I like it. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today. The album is available May 20th, and everyone should run out and get it. It is called AM Gold by Train. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thanks, Katie. Great to talk to you.
Hey there. Thanks for watching AXS TV. Subscribe, follow, like, and do all the good stuff. And make sure you leave a comment below. I don't know. Just let us know what your favorite AXS TV show is, or who your favorite bands are, and what artists you're into, or just say hi, man. I like to be told hi. We love hearing from you. That's the point, all right? Keep it coming.